The arrival was sudden, a flash of light in the sky that spread across the horizon as the alien fleet descended into Earth's orbit, their ships gleaming with cold metallic surfaces, reflecting the light of the sun. They hovered above the world, as if they were waiting for something that would never come. The people below, unaware of the coming storm, gazed up in awe at the strange lights, thinking them to be nothing more than a passing anomaly, a star falling, a comet streaking through the heavens. But this was no ordinary event. It was the beginning of something far worse than any of them could imagine. The alien ships had been sent by an empire so vast that it spanned dozens of worlds and systems. They had conquered countless civilizations without ever breaking a sweat. Their technology far outstripped anything humanity had ever known. They were ruthless, they were cold, they were precise. Their leaders believed that Earth would be no different than any other world they had subjugated before. They had come to claim it, to conquer it, and to erase all traces of humanity in the process. The world watched in confusion as strange crafts dropped from the sky, strange creatures descending upon the cities of Earth. Without a word, the invaders deployed their forces in rapid succession. Ships landed in every major city, their soldiers pouring out in perfect unison, their advanced armor reflecting the light of the setting sun like something from a nightmare. It wasn't long before humanity began to realize the truth, that something was wrong, that these weren't visitors of peace, but invaders with a singular purpose. They had come to seize the planet, to destroy everything in their way. Soldiers in shining exosuits set foot upon Earth for the first time, their feet crushing the ground beneath them. They raised their weapons high and began marching forward, their faces hidden beneath sleek helmets. With cold eyes and even colder hearts, the humans were unprepared. They hadn't expected this. No one had expected this. What could Earth's armies do against such overwhelming power? The question echoed in the minds of those watching from the safety of their homes on their screens, as they saw the soldiers of the Empire marching forward, their guns firing upon anyone who dared approach their ships. Their technology too advanced for any of Earth's forces to comprehend, let alone stand against. The air seemed to grow heavier with every passing second as the invaders moved through the streets of the cities, undeterred by any obstacle they encountered. They walked through the rubble and the debris like giants through an ant-hill, unaware of the people they trampled beneath them. Governments across the world scrambled to respond, but it was clear they were too slow, too unprepared. As the Empire's troops began their relentless march forward, it felt as though humanity had no chance against this cold and efficient force, an unstoppable machine set in motion with one goal in mind: to claim the planet and wipe away everything that had come before it. But beneath the surface, the people of Earth were beginning to feel something stir, something that had been long dormant, a fire in the hearts of those who watched the invaders coming closer, a flicker of defiance that would soon spread across the world like wildfire. The first strike was quick and brutal. The alien soldiers descended upon the cities with precision, their weapons flashing as they moved through the streets, tearing apart anything in their way, their ships hovering above, dropping more troops as they established their dominance over the planet. The sky was filled with the sound of distant explosions and the crackle of energy weapons as the invaders moved with practiced efficiency, their energy shields glowing as they easily deflected any human resistance. The people of Earth watched in shock as their military forces scrambled to react. Their weapons were ineffective, their tactics outdated. They were fighting with arrows against a storm of lightning. Humanity was not prepared for this. They had never faced such an overwhelming force, and for a moment it seemed as if all hope was lost. Entire cities fell within hours. Those who tried to fight back were quickly cut down, their weapons no match for the alien technology. But something began to shift in the air, a stirring among the people who had witnessed the devastation from afar. They began to question how it could be that these invaders had come so far, and yet seemed to overlook something that could change the course of everything. In the heart of one destroyed city, a small group of civilians huddled together behind broken walls. They had no weapons, no formal training, but they shared one thing in common: the will to survive. They had witnessed the destruction of their world, and they refused to simply cower beneath the invaders' feet. As alien soldiers passed their makeshift barricade, they moved with a quiet sense of urgency. Working together, they managed to construct crude explosives from scraps they found among the ruins. Materials once thought to be worthless became their weapons. They set their traps in secret and waited, watching the invaders with sharp eyes and steady hearts. It was in the moments of silence, before the storm broke, that their chance arrived. The first alien soldier stepped too close to their trap. It was only a momentary hesitation before the trap was sprung. The explosion was loud enough to shake the ground, but it was precise enough to bring down just one alien, a single victory among a world of losses. The civilians didn't celebrate, they didn't cheer, they didn't have time for that. Their first kill had only been a start, but it gave them hope. In that moment they realized something: the invaders may have the technology, they may have the weapons, but they had underestimated humanity's most powerful tool. A sheer refusal to accept defeat. The group moved quickly. Their next strike came with the same calculated intensity. They didn't waste time celebrating small victories. They simply moved on to the next target. One by one, the invaders began to fall. The humans weren't making any large-scale impact yet, but they were sending a message: their enemies were not invincible. They could bleed. The word began to spread across the globe. Humanity was fighting back. There were no longer just passive onlookers. Some nations took up arms, while others began forming covert resistance cells, hidden beneath the rubble of their destroyed cities. Even the most unlikely survivors began to act in ways that defied logic. Ordinary civilians were suddenly armed with alien weapons. Captured in the chaos, others who had once feared fighting took up arms in defense of their families and homes. Humanity's resistance had only just begun, and the invaders were beginning to realize it wasn't going to be as easy as they had thought. As the days passed, humanity's resistance grew stronger, more organized. It wasn't just in the destroyed cities where the spark of rebellion burned bright. Across the globe, small pockets of survivors began to form makeshift armies. The news of the resistance spread like wildfire. Underground radio stations, hacked broadcasts, and encrypted messages reached all corners of Earth. The alien invaders, though powerful and precise, began to realize they had miscalculated the resolve of the humans they had come to conquer. No matter how much damage they inflicted, no matter how many cities they reduced to rubble, the human spirit refused to bend. In the dark corners of destroyed cities, a group of engineers, former military personnel, and tech specialists worked tirelessly to reverse engineer the alien weapons they had salvaged. What had once been incomprehensible advanced technology began to make sense in human hands. They learned to replicate alien energy shields, adapt their weaponry, and even craft drones powered by alien energy cells. What started as small victories turned into coordinated strikes that disrupted the invaders' operations, throwing their precision into chaos. One group of hackers, led by a brilliant young woman named Maya, cracked the encrypted communication channels the Empire used to coordinate their forces. They learned the invaders' tactics, their movements, and their plans in real time. With this knowledge, humanity began to fight smarter, not just harder. Maya's group transmitted fake orders to alien units, sending them on wild goose chases, while the resistance launched surprise ambushes and sabotages. With each success, their confidence grew. The tide was beginning to shift. Meanwhile, a resistance fighter named Jax, once a small-town mechanic, had become a symbol of humanity's ingenuity. With no formal military training, he had become a leader of a resistance group that specialized in guerrilla warfare. His small team of fighters had discovered how to use the alien weapons against their creators. They had learned how to hack into the aliens' communication systems, setting traps and leading the invaders into ambushes. With each alien death, the Resistance's reputation spread. It wasn't just a handful of rebels anymore. Humanity was uniting, adapting, and learning. Jax stood on a rooftop, watching an alien transport ship soar overhead. He knew that, given the right chance, they could take it down. One night, under the cover of darkness, Jax's team struck. They used the alien technology they had scavenged to take out a supply convoy that had been bringing reinforcements to one of the invaders' bases. A well-placed shot took out the lead transport, setting off a chain reaction that obliterated the convoy. As the invaders scrambled to organize a counterattack, Jax and his team slipped away, their message clear: they were not done. They were learning. They were adapting, and they would never stop fighting. Across the planet, similar small-scale victories were taking place, while the Empire's elite forces were still a terrifying force to be reckoned with. Humanity had developed a dangerous edge, an unpredictable, ever-evolving strategy that the invaders simply couldn't anticipate. In the deep jungles of South America, resistance cells had hidden in the thick foliage, using the terrain to their advantage. In Eastern Europe, survivors had rigged alien weapons to create deadly traps that would destroy an entire battalion in seconds. The coordinated global resistance became a relentless force, and the Empire's once certain victory now seemed uncertain. The invaders were beginning to realize the unthinkable. They had underestimated humanity. It wasn't just the technology or the numbers. It was the tenacity, the adaptability, and the refusal to accept defeat. They had come to conquer Earth, but the Earth was fighting back. With every passing day, the resistance grew bolder, and the invaders were beginning to feel the pressure. Humanity had learned a valuable lesson in the most brutal of ways. They could survive, they could fight, and they could win. The Empire's confidence was waning, but they still held an overwhelming advantage. Their fleet was massive, their technology unfathomable, and their forces well coordinated. Yet, the humans' unpredictability was becoming a weapon in itself, something the invaders could no longer ignore. While the resistance had made small gains, the invaders' sheer firepower had allowed them to retain control over key regions. But humanity was learning, and every day, they were getting better at turning the tables. One particular day, a new victory would come to symbolize this growing shift. A massive alien warship had been sent to obliterate one of Earth's major cities, a calculated move to crush the human spirit once and for all. The Empire's commanders had planned to deploy a devastating bombardment, unleashing energy beams capable of erasing whole city blocks in a single strike. The people below had no idea the catastrophe about to befall them. But the resistance had anticipated this move. A small but highly skilled group of fighters had been preparing for this exact scenario. In an operation that felt more like a high-stakes heist than a military strike, they infiltrated the alien warship's communications network, hacking into their targeting systems and redirecting the warship's massive energy cannons. It was an audacious plan, one that could easily fail, but failure was no longer an option for the humans who had come to realize just how much they were capable of. As the warship prepared to launch its first devastating strike on the city, the humans initiated their plan. With a series of precise commands and expertly timed movements, they manipulated the warship's targeting systems, rerouting its cannons back toward its own fleet. The results were immediate and catastrophic. The first energy blast fired back at the warship itself, creating a chain reaction that tore through the alien fleet like wildfire. A dozen warships were destroyed in moments, a blow to the Empire's pride and power that would echo across the galaxy. The humans had not only thwarted the Empire's plans, they had used their own weapons against them in a way that was both brilliant and terrifying. The news of the victory spread like wildfire across Earth. Humanity's victory felt like a crack in the wall that had separated them from the invaders' superior technology. The Empire had underestimated the humans' ability to turn their enemies' power into their own. The morale boost was undeniable. The resistance was no longer a ragtag group of rebels. It was a force to be reckoned with, and the Empire knew it. Now the Empire faced an uncomfortable truth. They weren't fighting against mere survivalists. The humans had become strategists, engineers, and warriors in the truest sense. The invasion had turned into something much more dangerous than the Empire could have ever predicted. Every time they struck, the humans adapted. Every time they crushed a city, the people grew stronger in their resolve to fight back. The Empire had been quick to launch their assault on Earth, believing their conquest would be swift and easy. But they had forgotten one thing, that humanity's greatest weapon was its ability to learn and adapt in the face of adversity. As the Empire regrouped and tried to salvage what remained of their fleet, the humans used the time to fortify their positions. What had once seemed like a hopeless battle was now a war of attrition that the Empire hadn't prepared for. Humanity had fought back with fire, wit, and resourcefulness, and they were winning. The invaders' once imposing fleet was now fractured and reeling. A quiet sense of unease spread throughout the Empire as they realized the true nature of their enemy. They had not just underestimated Earth, they had underestimated the sheer power of human resolve. The Empire was no longer invincible. What had begun as an invasion of cold precision was now a struggle against an enemy who had adapted in ways no one could have predicted. The human resistance, once dismissed as a fleeting annoyance, had become a relentless force that refused to be extinguished. But the Empire was not one to be easily deterred. Faced with the unexpected resilience of the human race, they'd made their most desperate move yet. A last-ditch weapon, one so powerful that its sole purpose was to obliterate the planet in one fell swoop. A massive planet-killing device was deployed from the Empire's remaining command ship, a construct unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It was a gargantuan satellite, a Death Star that would rain down waves of destructive energy capable of incinerating entire continents in a matter of minutes. The device hovered in Earth's orbit, casting a dark shadow over the planet as the Empire's leadership prepared to unleash the final blow. They had calculated everything. If Earth's cities were destroyed and the resistance crushed, humanity would be forced to surrender. It was their ultimate gambit. But they underestimated one thing: the unyielding nature of humanity's will to survive. As the weapon powered up, the resistance had already put into motion a plan more daring than any they had attempted before. Maya and her team of hackers had infiltrated the Empire's remaining encrypted systems, tracing the signal that controlled the planet killer. It was a near impossible task, but Maya had spent sleepless nights working with a team of experts who had become her second family. They found the weak spot, buried deep in the satellite's code. An unnoticed backdoor, a flaw in its design that had been overlooked in the Empire's hubris. Meanwhile, Jax and his team prepared for the most dangerous mission of their lives. The planet killer had to be disabled before it fired. The plan was simple in its audacity. Jax's team would infiltrate the Empire's flagship, the vessel that controlled the satellite, and manually deactivate the weapon from within. There was no room for error. They would have to fight their way through the flagship's advanced defenses, which were far more lethal than anything they had faced before. But the humans were no longer scared. They had fought this battle for too long to let it end in defeat. As Jax's team approached the flagship's docking bay, they moved like shadows, each step calculated, each action precise. They knew their only chance was to strike quickly and decisively. The alien soldiers, despite their advanced technology, had grown complacent, confident that no one could infiltrate their fortress. They were wrong. The resistance fighters fought their way through the ship's corridors, using guerrilla tactics that caught the aliens off guard. Every time the invaders thought they had the upper hand, the humans adapted, turning their environment to their advantage. They used alien weapons against their creators, setting traps and ambushing their pursuers with a ferocity that left the Empire reeling. The battle was fierce, but Jax's team was determined. At the heart of the flagship, the countdown to launch the planet killer had already begun. Maya's team hacked into the communication grid, sending a signal that triggered a disruption in the satellite systems, buying Jax's team precious seconds. But it wasn't enough. With every passing moment, the weapon came closer to firing, threatening to wipe out all life on Earth. Jax and his team fought through wave after wave of alien troops, knowing that the fate of their entire world rested on their shoulders. Finally, they reached the control room, just as the weapon powered up for its final strike. With a single, desperate push, Maya's hack triggered a cascade of failures in the satellite systems, turning the weapon's power against its creators. In an instant, a cataclysmic explosion ripped through the flagship, taking the planet killer with it. The Empire's last hope for Earth's destruction had failed. But as the flagship crumbled, Jax's team escaped, battered but alive. They had won. The weapon was disabled, and Earth's chance for survival was no longer a mere hope, it was a reality. The message was clear. The Empire had underestimated humanity, and now they would know the true meaning of resistance. The destruction of the planet killer was a victory unlike any other. The Empire had sent their most advanced weapon to Earth with the expectation that it would break humanity's spirit once and for all. Instead, it became the symbol of their underestimation. The Earth was not a prize to be claimed. It was a battleground where even the most powerful forces in the universe could be turned back by the sheer will of its inhabitants. In the wake of the destruction, the global resistance was more unified than ever. Cities that had once been in ruins were now rebuilding, not just their homes but their strength. Humanity had tasted victory, and it only fueled their desire to reclaim their planet. The invaders, though still formidable, now found themselves fighting a war of attrition, their forces slowly being chipped away by an enemy they had thought insignificant. But the Empire had not yet surrendered. They had learned from their mistakes, and though their morale was shaken, they weren't ready to give up on Earth just yet. Their remaining fleet, though significantly smaller, still held the firepower to cause massive destruction. The Empire's new strategy was to tighten their grip, focusing on capturing Earth's remaining strategic locations and cutting off supply lines to the growing resistance forces. They sent waves of reinforcements, bolstering their position on the planet's surface, while plotting their next move to wipe out the rebels once and for all. But the humans were ready. The defeat of the planet killer had galvanized them in ways the invaders could never have imagined. Now, resistance groups from every corner of Earth came together, pooling their resources, sharing intelligence, and planning strikes with greater coordination than ever before. The once disparate groups of rebels had become a united front, a global force that was not just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to reclaim their world. Maya's team, the hackers who had crippled the Empire's weapons systems, had become the intelligence backbone of the human resistance. They were able to intercept the Empire's communications and even deceive the invaders into making costly mistakes. What was once a scrambling, disorganized defense had evolved into a well-oiled machine. The humans had developed a far deeper understanding of the Empire's strategies, their technology, and their weaknesses. It wasn't just about fighting anymore. It was about outsmarting the invaders at every turn. Jax's team, fresh from their victory aboard the flagship, was now operating as a special task force within the Resistance, tasked with taking down key targets within the Empire's command structure. Their most recent mission was one of great importance: to sabotage the Empire's remaining military command center located in a remote part of the world, deep in the mountains. If they could disrupt the Empire's command and control, it would scatter their forces and severely cripple their ability to retaliate. As Jax and his team prepared for the mission, the gravity of their task weighed heavily on them. This wouldn't just be another skirmish. It was a bold strike that would send shockwaves through the Empire's entire infrastructure. They knew the risks. The command center was heavily fortified, surrounded by elite alien forces and advanced weaponry. But they also knew that the longer the Empire remained organized, the longer they could launch effective attacks against Earth's remaining cities. The Resistance was determined. The operation was planned with military precision. Every member of Jax's team had a role to play, and failure was not an option. They moved out under the cover of darkness, navigating through enemy lines, and using guerrilla tactics to stay hidden. As they neared their objective, a sense of unity and resolve washed over them. This was their moment. They weren't just fighting for their survival. They were fighting for the future of the planet. Inside the command center, the Empire's leaders were unaware of the danger closing in. They were confident in their defenses, believing that their technological superiority would keep them safe. But the humans had learned to use their own arrogance against them. Jax's team was closing in, ready to strike at the heart of the Empire's command. The command center loomed before them, a massive fortress of steel and alien technology. It was nestled deep within a mountain range, hidden from the eyes of the world's remaining human forces. As Jax's team moved closer, they knew the stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just about taking out a single stronghold. It was about crippling the heart of the Empire's operations on Earth. If they succeeded, the entire infrastructure of the invaders could collapse, leaving them disoriented and vulnerable. If they failed, it would spell certain death for every member of the resistance. The air was thick with tension as the team made their way through the rugged terrain. The sound of distant alien patrols echoed in the distance, their footsteps reverberating off the rocky landscape. Jax's heart pounded, but he pushed the fear aside. They couldn't afford mistakes. Each step had to be calculated. The mission would fail if even one of them faltered. The team was silent, their breath steady as they moved, their eyes darting to every shadow, every movement in the landscape. Jax glanced back at his team, their faces grim but determined. Maya was there, the quiet hacker whose brilliant mind had already saved them countless times. She was clutching a small device, a portable terminal that would allow her to hack into the center's mainframe and disable its security systems. Then there was Rick, the heavy weapons expert. His fingers were itching for a fight, ready to unleash destruction with the alien plasma rifles he had become proficient in using. And finally, Lara, the sniper. Her gaze was sharp as she scanned the perimeter. They were ready. The command center came into view, its silhouette a dark monolith against the night sky. It was surrounded by a high-tech fence that hummed with energy, guarded by elite alien soldiers who patrolled in synchronized patterns. They had made sure to study the guard rotations ahead of time, memorizing the timing of each movement. They couldn't afford to be detected. The team split into two groups. One headed for the main entrance while the other took a more treacherous route to infiltrate through the back. Maya's fingers flew over the terminal as she bypassed the security systems. Every second mattered. The team knew the moment they were detected, the entire compound would be on high alert, and the mission would be over before it began. A tense silence stretched, broken only by the faint hum of the mountain's hidden machinery. Then, with a soft peep, Maya's device came alive. "We're in," she whispered, a rare smile flickering across her face. They moved quickly now, darting through shadows and slipping past the first wave of guards. The enemy was still unaware of their presence, thanks to Maya's timely intervention. But they couldn't waste time. Jax's heart raced as they moved deeper into the complex. They had to reach the control room, the central hub that managed everything from alien fleet movements to planetary resource distribution. As they navigated the winding corridors, they passed several rooms filled with alien technology, holographic displays, energy generators, and weaponry that humanity had yet to fully understand. Every time they rounded a corner, Jax's instincts screamed for them to be careful, to move faster, to take fewer risks. The tension was unbearable. Then, a sharp noise echoed down the hallway. A guard's voice. They weren't alone. Rick instantly raised his plasma rifle, prepared for a fight, but Jax signaled for him to hold. The guard's footsteps grew closer. Time was running out. Jax's eyes locked with Lara's, and in a split second, she silently moved into position. She was ready. When the guard appeared, she fired with surgical precision, dropping him instantly. There was no time to hesitate. "Move," Jax barked, and they charged forward, entering the control room. Inside, an alien officer turned in surprise, but before he could react, Maya had already hacked into the system, shutting down the entire command grid. The lights flickered, the monitors went black, and the central hub ground to a halt. But the victory was short-lived. The alarm system blared to life, echoing throughout the entire facility. "Time's up," Rick shouted, already positioning himself by the door, waiting for the incoming reinforcements. Jax's heart pounded, but he kept his focus. "We've got what we came for. Let's go." The team sprinted for the exit. The fight was far from over, but they had dealt a heavy blow to the Empire's command center. They had disrupted their operations and given humanity a fighting chance. As they escaped into the night, the sound of approaching alien forces echoed in the distance. The Empire was coming for them, but they had no idea what was waiting. The escape from the command center was chaos. The blaring alarms reverberated through the compound as Jax and his team sprinted down the corridors, their feet pounding against the metal floors. Behind them, the sound of the Empire's reinforcements echoed louder with every passing second. They had dealt a significant blow, but the fight was far from over. The Empire would not let this insult go unanswered, and humanity's chance at survival was still hanging by a thread. Jax glanced over his shoulder as they turned a corner, the weight of their success and the imminent danger pressing down on him. They had disabled the central command grid, disrupting the Empire's entire infrastructure on Earth. But with that disruption came a price. The Empire would mobilize everything they had to reclaim control, and they had no idea what kind of retaliation awaited them. "We've got to make it out of here," Jax shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Rick was already ahead, laying down suppressive fire with his plasma rifle as alien soldiers emerged from the shadows. The first wave of reinforcements was on them, but the team wasn't slowing down. They moved as one, their training and unity keeping them coordinated despite the overwhelming odds. Maya, her face set with determination, kept pace with the others, her fingers already working to access the complex's systems to open a series of emergency exits. Lara, always calm under pressure, covered their six, ensuring no one was left behind. As they neared the final door, the heavy thud of alien boots grew louder. They were closing in. The exit was in sight, but so were the Empire's most elite forces, humans who had learned to adapt to their advanced weapons and technology. These were the last barriers between the Resistance and freedom. "Go, go, go," Jax barked as he pushed the door open. But a pulse of alien energy ripped through the air just as they crossed the threshold, narrowly missing them. The blast threw them forward, but they continued moving, unyielding in their resolve. They emerged into the night, breathless but not beaten. The harsh glow of the Empire's searchlights cut through the darkness, scanning for any sign of the intruders. The mountain air was cold, but it didn't matter. Every fiber of Jax's being was focused on getting his team to safety. The mission had been a success. They had crippled the heart of the Empire's operation on Earth. But the war wasn't over. "Back to the rendezvous point," Maya shouted, her voice strained as she pulled out a small communicator, her hands trembling from the adrenaline. "We need to regroup. The Empire will have reinforcements in the air any minute." They ran, dodging between rock formations and using the natural terrain to cover their escape. They had been in the Empire's crosshairs too many times to count, and they knew the stakes of failure. But they also knew this: they had won a major victory. The Empire's grip on Earth was weakening, and the Resistance was more than just a thorn in their side now. They were a global force capable of striking fear into the very heart of the Empire. As they reached the extraction point, a transport shuttle hovered just above them, a silent figure in the night sky. They climbed aboard one by one, the door closing behind them with a soft hiss. As the shuttle ascended, Jax looked out the window, his eyes searching the horizon. The Earth, battered and broken, was still their home. It was scared, but it wasn't lost. "We've done it," Rick muttered, his voice filled with a rare note of awe. "We've given them something to fear." Jax nodded, but there was no time for celebration. The war was far from over. The Empire would regroup, they would retaliate, but they had now tasted the true strength of humanity. The fight was no longer about survival. It was about victory. The shuttle soared higher, and as it passed over the glowing cities of Earth, Jax could see the movement of Resistance forces below. The fight was global, and humanity was no longer fighting to exist. They were fighting to reclaim their world. They were ready for the Empire's next move, and they would not back down. The battle had only just begun, but this time, humanity was in control. And the Empire would soon learn that Earth was not theirs to conquer, it was theirs to defend.